everyone, I'm the Black Shadow and welcome to Top 5. This is a brand new series that I'm going to be doing on the channel where we'll be taking a look at a specific subject and I'll be giving you my top 5 tips for how to improve your game. We want to do this for Uprising for a little bit, but I wanted to wait until I knew a bit more about the game, gone through the North Carolina Invitational events and stuff like that, so that I can give you the best advice that I physically can for your game. If this proves popular, I'll do some more of these looking at different aspects. For the time being, I'm going to start off with the leaders for Dune Uprising. And first up is going to be Paul himself, Muad'Dib. So a lot has changed for my boy, Paul. As it turns out, his bitter struggle with the Harkonnens has left some pretty lasting marks on him, and it is reflected in Uprising. In the original game, he's kind of the jack of all trades with his Preaching's ability, being able to know what his next card is, pairing with his ring quite nicely to himself, nice kind of strings of combos of moves, and also kind of keeping your options open, though no specific speciality outside of that. Whereas now, as Muad'Dib, he is about as battle-focused a leader as you can physically get in the game, and it is significant. It's fascinating in a way that he actually has effectively the same ring, although it's under a different name, but his passive makes an incredible change. So my first tip for you is embrace the Fremen and go Worms. This is what Muad'Dib is all about now. He is ready just to take the fight to all opposition and just blast them off the battlefield using whatever means necessary. And so for Uprising, what that's going to mean is that you want to be visiting these dudes very, very frequently. And the reason for that is because Muad'Dib wants Worms. He wants Mega Hooks to really, just absolutely dominate the battlefield, claim as much resources as he can from them, and just look to absolutely snowball the game. It's not a particularly fancy trick, and there's, I suppose, nothing particularly special about it, but in a way, its simplicity is its strength. That's all you want to do, early game, get your faction access, hit Fremkit, hit Desert Tactics, go for early combats, take rewards, and just absolutely steamroll your way to an early advantage, keep it going, getting yourself Worms, doubling combat rewards, and rocking and rolling from there. I mean, this ties quite nicely to the second point for this. And I think what can make Muad'Dib really, really devastating is his passive ability here, Unpredictable Foe. If you have a Sandworm conflict on your reveal, you just get an intrigue card completely for free. On the face of this might not look the most substantial, but in Uprising, this is actually potentially totally devastating. Now, as far as the Intrigue deck is concerned for Uprising, there may not be, absolutely crazy game-changing cards around, like Corner the Market, Plans within Plans, that sort of thing. The power of those has been slightly reduced, but what you have instead is a pretty solid overall deck where everything is useful, be it for combat potential, for ways to break the wall, to, of course, get more Sandworms into combat. There are also other things as well to get hold of victory points, resources, improving your deck, other faction bumps. There's a lot of really solid stuff in here. So just being able to get a passive source of those coming into your game is really big, because it's not easy to get those outside of it. Outside of Secrets and Assembly Hall, that's about it, really. There is no Carthag anymore, and people aren't going to be hitting Sardaukar a lot here. Carthag in the previous game was a very common source, a way to get hold of those intrigues early and use those to get against your opponents. So Muad'Dib can really carve himself a really nice niche here. Another thing that people forget is just having intrigues in your deck makes you inherently scarier to fight as well. And people do forget this. There is a bit of psychological battle that goes on with this game sometimes. Take this example here. Let's say I'm playing as Muad'Dib as the blue player, and we're fighting against yellow. Now, yellow's already got some troops deployed, but if you're playing the blue player, if you're able to start getting troops in, especially if you're able to start getting other Sandworms in as well, so you're getting more intrigues, if you're the guy sitting with 3 intrigues and your opponent has none, it suddenly gets very unappetizing for the other player to then further deploy and look to get in front of you. Even though your intrigues might not actually give you any combat strength at all, your opponent has no idea what they are. They could just be blanks. Those could be tons of swords waiting to ambush anyone that tries to get in and muscle in on your combat. So when you later on, you're trying to get those intrigues and get those resources from combat, those intrigues there, even if they're not that good to you and you know they're not that good, no one else has any idea what they are, and that's something you have to take advantage of. Next up, let's look at Muad'Dib's ring, Lead the Way. So this has not actually changed remotely since the first game. It's still exactly the same. Play your ring, draw a card. Simple, but effective. But because of the way that Uprising as a game has changed, the actual kind of nature and application of what you're trying to do with this has changed along with it. So to me, there are, funnily enough, 3 sort of uses you can look for your ring, especially early games. There's a few things you can want to do with this. First of all, just drawing cards is always going to be good. It's for bet reveals. And what Muad'Dib is deceptively good at is targeting those decent 5, 6, or maybe even 7 cost cards in the opening game. If you can somehow, as Muad'Dib, get to Fremkit with like your Seek allies, you draw a card. Then if you get to Arakeen with your Signet ring, you're drawing 2 cards, so you've got a hand of 6 in total, and you can pretty reliably target with these really powerful game-changing cards very early on, and they'll just cycle into your deck super early. You can get used to them straight away, and those can be massive boons. This plays quite nicely into both points 2 and 3 here. Because of the fact that you're drawing more cards than your opponents, what's allowing you to do is to deck cycle more frequently. One of the very strong things that can happen to you in a game of Dune Imperium is that you buy like a really strong 5, 6, 7 cost a card round 1, and then because you've drawn your hand, you pull it round 2 for instant application. Getting, say, like Long Live the Fighters to like Fremkit or Desert Tactics round 2 is unbelievably powerful. When people are scrambling for access to faction access, you're getting the access, you're getting the supplies, you're drawing loads of cards, you're retrashing, you're getting rid of stuff you don't need, and it can really heavily optimize your playstyle very, very early. But the last thing it also helps with is reveals in particular. Muad'Dib, although he is obviously a very heavy battle leader, can usually find one round where you just punt for a Spiceman's Flow card, for example. Sending, say, Muad'Dib over with his ring to Research Station. 2 water for 2 troops and 3 cards. It's a pretty big deal. Also, what this allows you to do is find those extra bond cards, and in particular, as it turns out, the Fremen as well. Cards like Unswerving Loyalty, Stilgar, Charney, Ecological Station, Watermaster, all these sort of cards. If you're drawing more cards into your hand to reveal at the same time, there's bigger chance of finding those Fremen bonds. So that is something that should not be slept on. If you decide to tribalize and go for a really heavy Fremen deck, Muad'Dib's about as good a person as anyone to take use of that. So the 4th tip here is going to be seat position. This is something that I think players have become more and more mindful with Ix and Imo, and especially in Uprising. I think there are some leaders that it's very, very particular for. Muad'Dib, I do believe, is one of those. You've got to look at his early objectives. You're trying to get Fremen access ASAP to get to Siege, to get to Worms, to really battle for conflicts. So as such, how are you going to do that? Well, you're probably going to want Muad'Dib either in the 1st or 2nd seat position. This way you have the best odds of drawing your 5 cards, finding your loose faction access, and that allowing you to then start hitting the likes of of Fremkit, of Desert Tactics, that sort of thing here. Seat 2 especially is a very pop one for Muad'Dib. If you can just draw the 1 faction access card now, well, you can easily go to either Fremen space, knowing that next round you're guaranteed to find your other one, and then Siege, Worms, and you're off to the races. It doesn't mean you're beholden to only the first 2 seats, though. As we've mentioned, Muad'Dib can be deceptively good at sniping those high-value cards, so even 3rd seat can be pretty decent, though you've got to be careful. The further down the chain that you go, the less and less likely it is that you're going to find that Fremen access. And ultimately, Muad'Dib, you can't really live on just your reign. You've got to get Unpredictable Foe going ASAP here, so the further back down the chain you go, the harder it is going to be to get to that. So for tip 5, this is my wildcard tip for you with Muad'Dib, is that his ability and his general game plan is both his biggest strength, but also can be his biggest weakness. We've talked about the fact that you want to be going Fremen. You want to get Fremen access, go Siege, get hooks, get Worms. It's simple and it's effective. The problem from Muad'Dib is that it's also an incredibly obvious route that you're going to be taking. As such, the problem you've got is because you're so obviously going to be going for those hooks and worms, is it makes it very appealing for the table to try and block you and prevent you from being able to achieve that. Because Muad'Dib has the ability to snowball so heavily, and we've seen it in games before when Muad'Dib gets those hooks early, gets a couple of good combats early, and just rocks from there, it means that Muad'Dib's early game is incredibly critical, and as such, if players on the table can block you and stop you from achieving that, you've got to expect that they will. They will play back at you a lot more aggressively than if it was someone else, even someone else that goes for hooks like a Gurney or a Fade, for example, because Muad'Dib's absolutely crucial that he gets those worms. If you can stop him generating those, it will cause a lot of damage to him in the long run, and it will make it very hard to recover. So be wary of that, both if you're playing as Muad'Dib as well as against him. And so that is my top 5 for Muad'Dib. Hopefully be able to use those little tips and tricks to get yourself started on Arrakis. Of course, if you like what we do, you can follow and support us here on Hidden Assets, and we'll be having more for the top 5 series coming very, very soon. So thank you much for watching. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you very soon.